Hi, everybody. This is Dan Chun, co-founder of Hawaiian Islands Ministries, also known as HIM. And this is the HIM podcast, where we feature some of the coolest people, the thought leaders, the thinkers, the people who are experts in various areas, so we can learn more, but also get hope and encouragement in our faith. Every other week, we show some of the great speakers we've had at HIM conferences or interviews we've done before. But this week we have Leo Rodas, who is the executive director of Hope Center in Kaneohe on the island of Oahu here in Hawaii. And I mention this because I know we have viewers from the mainland, the continent, and you may not know where that area is. And so we are very grateful. Leo, you are with us today. How awesome is that?
Dan, thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for being with us. So, Leo, normally I give a biography of our guest, but you have such a fascinating past. And so I kind of want to walk through that and then lead up to how you are now the executive director of Hope Center and how this kind of all coalesced, all your experiences, and how literally you want to be a center of hope for others. And it is a Christian discipleship drug rehabilitation center. Is that the best way? Discipleship.
Yeah, we call it a discipleship center, but essentially, yes.
Yeah. So you grew up in Southern California. And so what was that like in your teenage years or childhood?
Right. So, Southern California, mostly like throughout the Compton, I guess like South Central LA area. And it was, I guess, kind of typical of what the 80s and early 90s might look like in that area. My parents migrated from Central America, from Guatemala, just before I was born. And so there's definitely a lot of experiences that they've kind of shared with me as far as what that process was like, what it was like for my brother to be born in Guatemala and then travel across the border here to the States. And so, growing up in like the Cay, Bullis, Long Beach, Rosecrans area, definitely brought a lot of interesting experiences.
Is
Uh,
that South Central LA, since some of our people
yeah,
may not know those
yeah, that would
cities?
be like the Compton and Watts, more Compton area. Yeah, that's where that would be. Yeah, so it was born Martin Luther King Junior Hospital, and at the time that was in Compton. Not sure where it's at now, if it's closed, still there, or what the case is. But yeah, so that's kind of where I grew up, and again, just really fortunate to have the experiences that I have, especially because my parents reflect on times of just struggle, not knowing what life would be like, especially for young migrants who don't speak the language. And then a pastor coming by, knocking on their door and sharing the gospel while they're struggling in their faith and again, just being new to the country. So, yeah, a lot of wonderful experiences for sure.
Wow. And so you grew up there, and it could have been a time when there was a lot of gangs and things. Was it, um, what was it like being an adolescent during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we moved around a lot. Dad did a lot of construction type of work, painting, handyman, carpentry, things like that. So we did move around quite a bit. Typically, you're just kind of chasing a job. Wherever he's going, that's where the family would go. And so we went to different places from that area in LA to, at one point, we're in Manhattan Beach, then we're in Lancaster, and then back into LA for middle school and high school ages. And yeah, it was definitely a lot of things that just as a kid, you're trying to find your way. And so when I was, I'd say like middle school, high school, mostly middle school, I'm starting to just kind of dabble in marijuana, exploring that. Not necessarily because my parents introduced it or uncles or what is somewhat common. It was just at school. staying after school, hanging out with my buddies, either on the street or doing whatever it was, going to somebody's house, and yeah, start getting introduced to it like that. I know they call it the gateway drug, again, because of those reasons, because it kind of opens you up to different substances. And so that's what it was for me, THC, hanging out with some friends. And that's kind of where things sort of started for me, is that I'd noticed that at home, sometimes mom and dad weren't getting along too well. Maybe sometimes dad was away at a longer job and he was maybe gone for like a week or so. And so, yeah, I would just spend more time with my friends, spend more time on the street. Whereas my older brother, he's 2 years older than me, his form of overcoming whatever home type of issues we had, it was school. So he was, it helped him. It was,
So he became an academic.
yes.
Whereas for you,
I became more of an academic in street culture. Yeah, for sure. Learning,
different kind of fraternities.
absolutely, learning the do's and don'ts of the street, right? And so, again, early on, I went from using to selling. And as I look back on these things, just kind of selling and even what happened afterwards, getting arrested at school, and being charged with like promotion, distribution, possession, distribution to minors, things like that, intent to distribute. It was really problematic. But as I look back on it, I think I caused a lot of pain for families, for young kids, say as an example, because again, you're opening them up to substances and to potentially a life of what that might bring on. And so, as I reflect a little bit on, say, like any involvement with organized crime or even like gang life, things like that, it was mostly selling drugs.
Boy, and that can be quite a burden today as you think back. Gee, did I lead some people down the wrong road?
Absolutely. It's something that
Yeah.
I mean, it haunted me. There are times sometimes where I'll even kind of remember back on faces from high school, say as an example. And not only did we sell marijuana, we also sold liquor.
Mhm.
And so we would go early in the morning to like the local Safeway or Albertsons or whatever grocery store it was, and we called it like doing a mission. You'd talk to your nearest homeless guy, and you'd say, "Hey, look, if you go in and get us like a handle of Sailor Jerry's, like a bottle of Sailor Jerry's or a bottle of whatever vodka, we'll give you some money. We'll give whatever you give him something too." He goes in, grabs a couple bottles, comes out, and we got these clanking in our backpacks. We'd go to school and we'd sell them. But the way we would do it was we'd have students buy, because they have vending machines. So they'd buy a Coke, they'd buy a Dr. Pepper, the drink of their choice. Either drink some or spill some out, and we top it off. Yeah, and so we'd have
Coke and vodka
it was
at 10 o'clock in the morning.
exactly. It's horrible, horrible. So again, I mean, it can be kind of comical in some ways, but if you kind of look at what we were doing, again, we're causing a lot of pain for families, for kids, and things like that. And so, again, these are things that I kind of look back on. I'm like, oh, Lord, thank you so much for saving me. Because you hear about a lot of different stories of folks that continue in that lifestyle and their lives just get progressively worse.
Mm. And that's kind of also, I mean, we're going to go on in your story, but even there, after you became a Christian, that was a way for you to say, ask for forgiveness, I guess, from God and just say, I'm sorry for that season in my life. Or else that burden would be on you forever, right?
Right. Often I'll say, especially like when I'm speaking or when I'm working with my guys at Hope Center, because they have a lot of guilt, shame, and remorse, is that I'll remind them, like, if I were to die today and I woke up in the depths of hell, it's because I deserve that.
Hmm.
But thank God that there is forgiveness, right, for the things that we've done. And so if we would turn our back on that lifestyle and just kind of be, made new or born again, then there is definitely a new life that we can live.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So, and we may come back to that, but you get through high school Then what? Is it college or what happens next?
Yeah, so then so I got arrested. I got arrested and I had to just kind of own up to those things. I did the walk of shame. We don't have to get into the details or intricacies of how it was that I got arrested.
Mhm.
It's definitely,
And how long were you in jail?
at that point, I think it was only like maybe 30 days or so,
Because
something
you're a
like that.
minor.
That was a minor. But I had to do a program. I had to do a program, and that program was about 90 or so days, maybe 90 or 120 days. And I had to work at the LA coroner's office, so work with the morgue, and it was like a scared straight type of program. And so I'd go there and work with just kind of like the deceased. And I'll never forget, there was one example of a gentleman that had come in. He was deceased. He had two holes in his head. One probably like baseball size, one a little bit smaller. I
Hmm.
don't know if this is okay to get into.
Oh, sure.
One smaller, maybe like golf ball size. And again, I'll never forget how the coroner was just grabbing the lifeless body, grabbing the neck, showing the places on the contusions on the head and things like that, the injuries on this person. And so he went on to explain that this gentleman was tagging on the center divider of a freeway. I don't know if it was a 110 or whichever freeway in LA.
What is tagging?
Yeah, tagging. It's a form of like graffiti art type stuff. And so it could either be, writing letters to symbolize what gang affiliation this person might belong to. It could be a form of art, drawing, type of paint. I didn't know exactly what it was that person had done. But what I did know was that he was tagging on the freeway on the center divider. Apparently, didn't see the oncoming truck that was coming when he decided to run back to his vehicle, and was hit by that, was struck. And so that's where he got the holes in his head. And again, you could see the brain matter just kind of oozing out,
Hmm.
right? Again, as the coroner is showing me this and describing this. And so these are types of things that I can appreciate, the scared straight type of program or ideology.
And Scared Straight, ideology is to scare kids who have started in crime or are in crime so that they won't do it again. Right. That's
Yes,
what Scared Straight is, just in case
exactly.
people don't know that
Yeah.
phrase.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. And so, again, that's just, it'll leave an imprint on your mind, right? And so, yeah, just seeing that, being aware of that, and thinking, okay, this, again, if I stay on the same trajectory that my life is on, it could be that I end up here on this bed. And so, again, that's what the idea of kind of scared straight,
So
what it
it
does.
worked for you, in a sense. It was a wake-up call.
Was a wake up call. Certainly was definitely a wake up call for me. And shortly thereafter, I knew that I wouldn't be graduating high school on time because I didn't have enough credits. Instead of going to school like every other good student, I was ditching class. And so I had way too many absences. And I just didn't have enough credits to graduate. In fact, there was one semester, I believe I had like a point 0.8 GPA, which is very low.
It's out of 4.
Yes, out of a 4.0, I got a C in a Spanish class. That was my only passing class.
And you already knew how to speak Spanish.
And I already knew how to speak Spanish, so I just had to
No
show
fair.
up. Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous. So,
You knew the vocabulary.
yeah,
You could ace it.
I could have easily. But again, that just kind of shows the lifestyle that I chose. And so, yeah, examples like that are the reason why I wasn't going to graduate on time. I had to go to adult school and things like that.
And amazing, though. I mean, if a teacher saw Leo in 11th grade or whatever grade, 12th grade, they would never imagine where you are today. I mean, they would say, there is no hope for this kid. 0.8 out of 4.
Right.
Crazy. Okay, so you're getting towards what should have been graduation, and then what happens at the
Yeah,
crossroads?
I meet a recruiter, and this recruiter was already working with another friend of mine, and I wanted to join the Army at that time because that seemed like the right thing to do. And so we were talking to this Army recruiter, And I was a little concerned with my background that I already had drug charge and all kinds of different things, legal issues. But again, this was around 2004 timeframe, so just after, a couple years after September 11, 2001, a couple of years after the invasion in Iraq in 2003. And so he's like, nah, don't worry about those things. And so in talking to my friend, he said, yeah, let's just go to the Army. The Marines are too hard. It makes no sense to do that. This is the easy way. And as soon as he said that, I was like, man, it's like he's speaking right to my heart. I was like, Marines are too hard. I'm going to the Marine Corps instead. So I talked to a Marine recruiter, and
Sorry, you Army vets out there.
yes, love you guys.
But Marines are harder, says Leo.
That's what I heard as a kid, and I said, you know what, I want to do that. Not necessarily that it's harder in any physical sense, but I knew in my heart that I needed something just more, sort of like more difficult, so that I can overcome the challenges that I still kind of carried with me. The
But that's
burden.
amazing you had that in you. Like, okay, give me something harder. If that's harder, I'll do that. If you tell me the Air Force is harder, I'll do that, whatever.
Yeah, but definitely not the Air Force. I just met someone from the Air Force, and even he's like, we call it Chair Force because we're always sitting down hanging out. But
Okay.
anyway, we
The
can cut
Coast
that.
Guard guys are saying, yeah. So,
Yeah, so going to the Marine Corps and was very thankful for the opportunities. I did want to work on trucks. That was like the idea.
interesting.
I wanted to be a mechanic. I love cars. I'm a car guy.
Trucks.
Love
Okay.
cars.
Not tanks, trucks.
No, I wanted to work on trucks and
Okay.
like 7 tons Humvees type of thing. They said that my ASVAB score didn't meet those requirements, which I later found out that was false.
What is that score? I'm sorry.
The ASVAB is like an entry exam
Okay, got it.
to go
Okay.
into the military,
Okay.
and that helps determine what job classification you can come in for.
And it was false.
And it was false. They said that the recruiter told me I scored too low to do anything besides infantry. Again, I later found out that wasn't true, but it's fine.
So they need to fill their quota. Is that it?
Again, yeah. So we're coming in at a time right when at the height of Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts,
Okay.
right? And so
Is that the point the conflicts are happening right then?
yeah,
Okay.
because
I can't track the year we're at, but yeah.
right. So yeah, right around 2004,
Okay.
2005.
Got it.
Yep.
Right.
So I graduate high school, just barely graduate high
Okay.
school. I get to walk the stage. That was a huge blessing, and the fact that the principal or dean at the school allowed that was
Wow.
was
From
huge.
point 8 to 2.0.
Yes, yeah, like barely scratching the surface.
You did advanced placement Spanish.
Nah, it was rough. Yeah. So then I do that, and I go to the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Yep, I go to the Marine Corps. So I have two graduations in 2005. One is from high school, and one is from Marine Corps boot camp. Yep. And then that started a whole new path for me. I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. And as an infantryman, you get to go to combat. You get, especially when the nation is at war, that's your understanding is that you're going to go into those conflicts as well. And I was all about it. I'll never forget my recruiter when he was getting me into the Marine Corps. He's like, because he knew about my past and a lot of things that I do with my friends in high school, middle school, high school were like backyard boxing and a lot of fighting and things like that. And so he said, hey, you'll get to punch people in the face and not get in trouble. I was like, wow, I'm sold, right? And so I did. I went and I did that and I had a good time. Not necessarily doing that, but definitely operating in combat environments. Yeah, developed a stronger brotherhood and friends that I still keep in touch with today.
And you worked on trucks?
Not really, actually, not at all. I didn't work on trucks once because that wasn't the military occupational specialty that I was given. Instead of being given the one for trucks because I didn't pass, I didn't get the score I needed on the ASVAB. My military occupational specialty, or what they call MOS, was 0311. 03 is a designation for infantry, and then 11 is a designator for just like your basic rifleman type of thing.
Okay. So you served on a tour abroad. What was the first country you served?
Yeah, my first tour was to Iraq.
To Iraq.
hmm
And I understand you got wounded there. So how did that occur?
Yeah, so even just in the workup, there's a lot that goes into going on a deployment. You do these workups where you're training and you're going to different locations or different ranges. Your team is building, your platoon is building in size, your battalion is building in size, and you're just constantly training, so that when you get into combat, you kind of know essentially what to do in certain scenarios. And so, yeah, there was some, even during the workup, there was a tank rollover that I was in. There was a night operation. We were in an M1A1 Abrams, and the driver went off of like a berm, like a small hill or a cliff type of thing, and the tank rolled. That was yeah, pretty significant for us. Stayed with it. We're fine, and then went. I'm trying to think what month it was that we deployed. I think it was like August 2006. We would have deployed to Iraq. And so we did. We went to Kuwait, then Al Assad. I'll never forget the heat. It was so hot. Went to Kuwait, then Al Assad, which is a larger base in Iraq. And then from Al Assad, we took helicopters to Al Qaim. And from Al Qaim, we took vehicles to our patrol base. Yep, it was called Tarawa. Went to our patrol base there and began operating there. And there were some early on. There were some firefights. We lost a corpsman in an improvised explosive device. He was in a vehicle. A good friend of mine is a Purple Heart recipient. He took a lot of shrapnel to his legs and things like that. And he was sent home almost immediately. And it was because our corpsman, that corpsman, was able to get everybody out of the vehicle, and then he couldn't get out himself, and it burned.
Oh.
Yeah. So these are the realities of warfare, certainly. And so then shortly thereafter, in December, I lost a really good friend of mine who was in another company. So not necessarily with us in our area of operations, just in a sort of neighboring town type of thing. A good friend of mine, spent a lot of time in training with him. He was in a Humvee. He was a driver, and they went over an improvised explosive device, what we call IEDs, and everyone in the vehicle was killed.
Oh.
It seems like they said that it seems like his neck, when the bomb blew up, his head hit the roof of the Humvee and kind of snapped his neck or something like that. And so, again, these things are very challenging to overcome, especially when you stand in front of his family like the way we did before we deployed and said, hey, we're coming back. No big deal. We're just going to deploy, come back. Everybody does it. And then that happens. And it was right around Christmas time. Shortly after that, we lost a really good friend of mine. Adam Emil was a saw gunner. He, on a foot mobile patrol, an IED, blew up. And I'll never forget, I had just gotten back from a patrol, experiencing that, hearing that. We got all our gear back on, our Kevlar, our flak, our bulletproof vest, all of our mags and everything we needed. Got right back. We called it in the chute. It's like where you're ready to push out that main gate. You just got to call into the command center and say, hey, we have this amount of guys. We're going to this location. Will you let us go? Just so they can track what's going on. And so we did. We were like the first team back out. And I remember seeing everyone all from Emil's patrol stick coming back, and they're full of blood and a Humvee, high-back Humvee, which is our like medevac Humvee, came flying by. Went back to the base, and
you're going out to save survivors or
yes,
find out what happened?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you're going out and then...
Exactly. And we see these guys coming back. And that was really, really difficult, very traumatic.
But you got wounded also.
And then shortly after that...
What happened?
Similar. There's an IED explosion. It's
on patrol.
On a foot mobile patrol. What we did in Iraq was, and if you recall, the idea was to train the Iraqi army to take over, because again, U.S. forces were not trying to establish a prolonged presence there. So it was just to train Iraqi army, what we called IAs. To train, they had these old school chocolate chip camouflage sort of utilities on. That was their uniform. And so we would stagger our patrol. It would be maybe a couple of those guys staggered in between us. We used to run a tactical column, which just means there's sort of two columns of people, and they're just staggered. So one on the right and then one on the left, one on the right, one on the left, with enough dispersion. The reason for that was because of IEDs. That was typically our enemy's like best way to attack us. And so yeah, it was exactly that. That it was like sometime in February, and there was a pressure plate IED that an Iraqi army soldier stepped on, and immediately he was KIA. And I was through the dispersion, I was a little bit further behind him, but next in line on running that tactical column. And so I don't really recall. Just what was told to me was that I was lifted up into the air, and the left side of my face had a bunch of rocks and asphalt in it. I do remember that. Still have some scarring on my left cheek and my lip, and it was kind of cut open, things like that. Still have some scarring on my left shoulder from those injuries. And thankfully, it wasn't so debilitating that I would be sent back to a stateside or anything like that. So after some time, just getting sort of treatment from our senior corpsman, I was back on patrol shortly thereafter, maybe about a month, 2 months later. Yeah.
Okay. And then you had another tour after that, Afghanistan.
Another tour to Iraq, and then another one, yes.
Oh, another tour to Iraq, and then to Afghanistan.
Right.
And then in Afghanistan, you got wounded again. What happened there?
Yeah, another improvised explosive device, a Humvee explosion. So we're driving, and similar to kind of what I described as far as what my friend Fernando Tamayo was in, was that we were in up-armored Humvees, going from our patrol base to we just go to different objectives. So as I was describing before we got started, typically you do like different types of patrols. The ones that we did a lot of were security patrols. And so you had a certain area of operations, and you just go to different locations. You're just kind of driving up and down these streets, taking a look around, seeing what's new, seeing what's different, just trying to get a pulse on the people, on the culture. And yeah, so it was just routine patrol. Nothing necessarily out of the norm. You can kind of sense when things are different, though. Sometimes if, for example, if you're gonna start to get shot at, what'll happen if it's like a populated area, like a market, shops will start to close, right?
And it gets quieter.
It gets, yeah. Okay, and you can almost sense the tension.
So you kind of sense that as you're driving down this
street?
So
we're moving pretty quick, and before we know it, our Humvee's on its side, and just another injury, like another concussion,
another IED.
Another IED.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what are the remaining symptoms or results of two explosions? One on your feet and one in a Humvee. That I want to fast forward a bit. That now you're in rehab, or what's the result of that even today?
Well, I would say before current times is the difficulty of overcoming, say, losing friends. That's hard.
Mm-hmm. So that's already a psychological, mental grieving,
absolutely. Loss. And what's sort of typical for Marines, it's especially like during November time frame, we celebrate Marine Corps Ball, Marine Corps Birthday. And a lot of alcohol, a lot of just like having fun in that sense. Sometimes alcohol is kind of glorified in that sense. And so one way that I was trying to, I guess, just deal with having been through what I'd seen or all those things, was just a lot of drinking. It was a lot of alcohol. I would say abuse, to the point that it surfaced in my work. And the Marine Corps will keep sort of track if it does surface in your work and it causes issues. They'll call it an alcohol-related incident. If you rack up enough of these, or one is so egregious, they'll send you to see someone likely within the military. who's called like a SACO, something like that, like a substance abuse
Counselor.
counselor slash officer.
Hmm.
At least that's what it was like back when I was still in the Marine Corps. And so I had to see somebody, and then he set me up with some classes and things like that. So that's sort of right away how it started to surface. Over time, the injuries, yeah, absolutely. Um, just even difficulty walking, a lot of like the vertigo, dizziness, things like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Did it affect your eyesight or your hearing?
Yes, yes. I think I got my left hearing aid in 2010, 2011. And then I got diagnosed with bilateral hearing loss shortly after that. So I got both hearing aids. Yeah, it affects all kinds. It affects, I mean, even just like the hypervigilance, always kind of being on edge.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, just like waking up in the middle of the night, looking out in the backyard, seeing if there's any movement out there,
Hmm.
making sure the doors are locked. Even though I locked them before I went to bed,
Hmm.
but it's like I'm already up. Might as well just go check again.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it manifests in a variety of different ways.
Hmm. So there was what we today would call post-traumatic uh, stress
Yes.
disorder, you know, and in addition to the physical um, injuries or ailments or results. So now I think you come to Hawaii for therapy. Is that right? For recovery,
Yes.
and this is perhaps it's becoming clearer at this point. The chapters of how God intervenes, right? That it was hard for you to get to Tripler or get some kind of treatment, and somehow you ended up in Tripler. That's how it started, right? So maybe you could condense that journey and how you got to
Right.
Hawaii, and then we're going to get to Hope Center. How this all leads to more education and
Right. Right.
devoting your life to a ministry called Hope Center.
So, yeah, there's a time where I'm really I'm really battling with what is my life going to look like.
And
Battling with a lot of
you're
injuries.
in the hospital, in the town, or in what
No,
town?
I'm still in the Marine Corps.
In the Marine Corps.
Still in the Marine Corps. I'm wrapping up a final deployment in what we call a MIU, Marine Expeditionary Unit. It goes to Okinawa, the Philippines. I think went to Tinian Island, Kuala Lumpur, a few other different
You've had a lot of
locations.
tours.
And so I had put in for reenlistment and was denied. At this time, it's about 2012 timeframe. I had just gotten that alcohol-related incident. It was pretty egregious. I had a lot of medical issues. And so I was denied reenlistment. Marine Corps said, "This is it for you. You're not going to continue. Thank you for your service. That's that." And so I just had to make my peace with that. So it was a very difficult time. I wanted to stay long term. I wanted to make a career out of it. But again, at that point in time, if we look back on the presidential administration, we understand that the military was downsizing as a whole. It wasn't just a single branch, it was as a whole. Military was downsizing. And so someone with sort of my background don't need you anymore, right? You're likely going to cause more problems. In my heart, it was like, hey, I would love to stay on board to continue to train new Marines, to train these junior Marines because they were still deploying. And so as a man, you start to wrestle with your sense of purpose,
Mm.
your sense of belonging. So when I finally got out of the Marine Corps, though I did have a lot of injuries, probably the biggest injury was just to myself, like just to the human experience was no one's calling me anymore to say, hey, are you gonna, you come into formation, or we have a room inspection, or hey, we got this going on. All that stopped. And it was just silence. And that silence can be so deafening at times. And so I just had to fill that with something. I chose to fill it with more alcohol. I actually got a job bartending,
Mm.
and was not the best thing for me. But that's just what I chose to do, and it just continued to make my injuries worse. And so it was time now to sort of face the music. I went to the VA. This was the time frame now was like 2012, 2013. I believe that the director of the VA was Eric Shinseki at the time. They
From
were,
Hawaii.
yes, local brother.
Four-star, I think. General, Army
And
General.
he again was secretary of the VA. And if you recall, some of the headlines were like military guys or veterans dying in the parking lots waiting for appointments. There was just a lot of like backlog when it
Hmm.
came to veterans receiving the care that they needed. This is also at the height of what we might recall as 22 a day. That statistic where they said there was 22 veterans committing
Oh
suicide
my.
every day.
Oh my.
And so everyone who had said that they loved me and they cared about me were no longer in my life because of my decisions, because of me pushing them away, because of just how I was. And so I needed treatment. I badly needed treatment. I had, I was coughing up blood, vomiting
Mm.
blood, a lot of blood in my stool, all kinds of really, really bad ailments. And so I was trying to get seen at VA Long Beach. Their wait time for an appointment was way too long. And so I got in touch with the VA central office. It's called VACO. I think it's in Oklahoma. And they said, hey, here's a list of VAs you can call and see if they can see you. I called a few of them, and same, the wait time was very long. I got to Hawaii, and I called them, and they said, "Oh, we have an operating room waiting for you if you'd like to come." It was either that one or Oklahoma's, and it's a no-brainer. I was like, "Let's go to
So
Hawaii."
this is operating room for your physical injuries, not
Yes,
yet your therapeutic mental issues.
right.
Okay, which is intriguing to me that the Marines didn't work on that earlier. I mean, if there were some egregious things, alcohol related, they didn't start you in a alcohol AA program in a sense,
There was
or did you not just
an
you not?
IOP. It was like
I don't know what that is. Okay,
intensive outpatient, enhanced, something like
right.
that is what they called it.
So they did try that earlier,
They tried it, but
but you
again,
weren't ready.
when you're not ready for these
Yeah, yeah.
things, and
Same for yeah.
you have like
Okay,
an addiction, you're like a master manipulator at
right.
saying all the right things
Hmm.
just so you can get out and do whatever you want.
So there's still some deception going on in your life.
Absolutely,
Okay,
absolutely.
so you get operated on. You're in Tripler, and so to fast forward a bit, how do you come to Christ in a new and fresh way?
Yeah, so I get out of that operating room. It was what they had originally said. It was like a no problem 3 hour surgery turned into like a 13-hour surgery.
Is that
Very
your shoulder
invasive.
or
It was my stomach.
your stomach
In my stomach.
because of the bomb blast?
Yeah, because of injuries that I had ignored. And
For
so
years,
for
not just the
years, they
recent
said there
one.
was some internal bleeding or
Oh,
something like that,
oh,
some issues with
shrapnel.
toxicity mixing with my bloodstream,
Oh my
something like
goodness.
that.
Okay.
And so a few days after, I'm discharged and I'm in a wheelchair. The doctors had said, hey, you're not going to walk the same, run the same. You're not going to be the same person that you were before. And so I remember I was so angry, and I was just thinking as I kind of wheeled myself out front in that lobby area there, just thinking, man, like what's the point then? I'm so young, and my life's not going to be the same. And I was looking back on times that I used to play soccer growing up or baseball, and just the things I used to do, even in the Marine Corps. It's like, I'm not going to do these things anymore. And so as I'm getting further into the parking lot, I'm just kind of sitting there and thinking, who am I going to call? What are my next steps? And somebody comes along and drops a Bible in my lap, and he says, read the red.
He said, read the red.
Read the red.
What did that mean?
And I understood what that meant because, again, my parents were Christian early on. And so they take us to church. So read the red was essentially, that's where Jesus is speaking in the Gospels. So I did that. I turned to
Red
the Gospels,
letters
the red letters, right? The red
in the
font.
Bible.
Yes. Drops a Bible in my lap, says, read the red. I open up to the Gospel of John. Beautiful gospel if you ever read it, especially early on, in the beginning was the word and all these things that we read through. I got to John 3:16. It's like, yeah, I've seen all this, so it's really not doing anything for me. I'm just kind of flipping through pages, and I get to John chapter 5, I think it was verse 39, where Jesus is speaking. And he says, he's speaking to, I believe it was like Pharisees or teachers of the law. He says, you search the scriptures because in them you think there's eternal life, but you see that the scriptures, they point to me. And for whatever it was, that particular passage, it brought up memories from recent memories from, say, like the war, being in firefights where an RPG was shot at our position and it didn't impact us. And I remember thinking then, how can this not impact us? I was looking and it looked like something slapped it out of the sky and it hit a different building. Just different things like that again were brought to mind on a training exercise in Yuma, Arizona, with helicopters. When the Ospreys had just come out, a crash landing that we were in that thankfully we weren't injured in. So things that, I guess, just examples where the Lord would point to Himself in my life. That's how I understood that passage. That all these things that I continued to ask myself, like, where's the good in all this? There's, everything bad always happens to me. Now I'm reading this text and it's just pointing back to Him, saying almost like, I was there all along. Even though you were so faithless, I remained faithful. Even though you wanted to do your own thing and just kind of run around, do whatever you wanted, I was always there to try to help you and protect you. And I remember I was just like so undone, just like tears are flowing, and I that's what I understood at the time. And I said, Lord, please forgive me. I just make me new. I don't want to be this person anymore. Help me to just be made new. And then from that point forward, just really committed to recovery, committed to going to the therapeutic process, physical therapy, aquatic therapy, all the different things that the VA had for me. I just started doing more and more of that. Then I started feeling better. Yeah.
Plus, you were sober.
And I haven't,
You stopped drinking at that
don't
point.
drink, don't use illegal substances.
Don't swear. You
I
told
don't
me.
swear. Yeah.
What kind of read are you?
Right.
So incredible. Do you ever think that was an angel that walked by, just plopped that by? I mean, what an incredible story that a man walks by, plops the Bible in your lap and said, read the red letters.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I tried to look back for him. I'm sure it was too late by then, but no, I didn't see anybody after that.
Okay, so flashing backwards, here's a kid who grew up in a good home, but then got into some kind of gang stuff and selling drugs, getting into Marines, drinking, getting into some bad alcohol-related incidents, has blown up twice, but injured other times during maneuvers, and zero point 0.8 GPA. But then you start getting education.
Yeah.
How did the Lord do that? So it sounds miraculous that the guy who didn't want school, in my understanding, you have more than one degree now. But what happened?
Yeah, I mean, didn't want school because I thought I was just too dumb. Like, it just didn't make any sense.
Okay.
I would try to pay attention and nothing ever worked for me. No subject, nothing. Like, I didn't like anything. And then, I'm just I'm just trying to get my life back on track, doing all the workups that I need to do. I went back to California to a small community college called El Camino College in Torrance. And I didn't exactly know why. I was interested in perhaps like business law, some sort of law maybe. And so I'm there. I'm just trying to listen and do the right thing, feel restored, renewed at this point. Talking to counselors, talking to the people that I needed to talk to get benefits from GI Bill and things like that. But I wanted to do things right. And so they just kind of helped me to develop a plan. And they said, hey, in a certain amount of years, you can have a bachelor's degree. I said, okay, let's try that. It just so happened that I spent about 2 years, maybe just shy of 2 years at El Camino College. I helped them with their veterans program, was nominated their veterans president, and just revamped the program, and it's grown quite substantially now. From there, I applied to Pepperdine University in Malibu.
That's quite a step up.
Quite the step up. These are things that, again, if I look back on my childhood, it's like I could never go to college, let alone a school like Pepperdine. I got before I even I think applied. I was in touch with a professor there, a very very nice guy. Recently passed away. You'd love him. You would have loved him. His name is Dan as well. And so this is the type of person that will believe in you when no one else does, and even when you don't believe in yourself. That's the type of guy he was. His name was Dan Caldwell. And so, yeah, he helped me out a lot. He helped, just kind of help the application process. So I got into Pepperdine University.
And this is still undergrad.
This is undergrad.
So you're a sophomore or so, or
Like that, like yeah, second year-ish. Yep. And just got there, and he's like, you have to work hard. Like nothing comes easy here. Even in his classes, he was very, very difficult. But I learned a lot. I did that, and this was at the height of the pandemic when I'm graduating. This is around 2020 timeframe when I'm graduating. And he says, okay, you now have a degree in political science and biblical theology, or it's like, you can't do anything. You need a master's degree. I was like, okay, I'll get a master's degree, Dr. Caldwell. And so he said, start applying to schools. I started applying to schools. Hawaii Pacific University accepts me for their social work program. And the emphasis is military and veterans focus. I said, this is great, and I would love to work at the VA. I had experiences at the VA, some not so good, some pretty decent. And so I said, if I can be a change agent from within the VA, I'd love to do that. And so, went to school, a 3-year program. Before I knew it, I was conducting my practicum with Department of Veterans Affairs.
So the .8 kid gets a undergrad degree from Pepperdine
With honors.
with honors and a master's from HPU.
And similarly with honors, I forget what the Phi Alpha Honor Society at HPU, Dean's List, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about born again. I mean, what a turnaround. Okay, now Hope Center. Now you're the head of a very important discipleship rehabilitation center. Tell us what Hope Center is and your dream for Hope Center and what you hope to accomplish and have accomplished at Hope Center.
Yeah, Hope Center is a 1-year men's recovery center. The residents there they live there. That's why we say it's a 1-year men's recovery center. They live on site, so that means it's residential. They live on site, and they are coming off of substances. They could be coming off of drugs and alcohol. They could be coming out of incarceration. Sometimes they need like a next step. Sometimes they don't have a job. And so we look at all that, the whole gamut, and we help them with relapse prevention curriculum. They go to church. The residents will get a job. They'll become what we call workforce development. We'll get them employed through vocational training. So yeah, it's a 12-month process that, just again, even looking back on my own life, of making so years of making poor decisions, what's 1 year for the rest of my life to regain the rest of my life? It's completely worth it. Even as we consider breaking old habits, that takes time. Learning new habits takes time, and then practicing those habits so they become more like muscle memory. That all takes time. Right, so that's a little bit about Hope Center. Right now we have close to 30 residents at Hope Center. It's in Kailua. And,
I said Kaneohe, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I live Kaneohe.
It's nearby.
Yeah.
Adjacent.
Yeah. So yes. We're very thankful for Hope Center. When I first came into Hope Center, residents were not necessarily doing what they needed to do for their recovery. They were just kind of sitting around, hanging out. Some of the graduates were just laying out on picnic tables. And I was ready to pull my hair out, thinking, man, what is this? What is this place? And so just changed it slowly, like you turn an airplane, very slowly, very methodically, began to change it for the better. through encouragement, through discipleship, through really just trying to love on these guys, because a lot like myself, there was plenty guilt, shame, and remorse, and there wasn't someone that would say, "Hey, you don't have to live that way anymore." Right? So that's what I brought to Hope Center. Just wanted to be like a beacon of hope in Hawaii for men who need it. And the idea is to put out good, godly men that would change the culture. So again, that's a little bit about Hope Center.
And as they go through the program, then they actually try to get jobs in the community, and that's part of their therapy. Is that correct?
Right. That's
And
what I do for them.
yeah, and I think my former church, I think, hired at least two of them, and I've heard nothing but good things about them. And one of them might be a key volunteer for the HIM conference.
Really?
So yeah, um, and so that's just great news. And so you have 30 of the program. You know, realistically, how many move on and graduate every year? Um,
Yeah, last year, if I'm just looking at metrics from last year, we had about 12 graduates. 10 of those are still clean, sober, not in any legal issues and things like that. So that's a pretty solid metric for us.
that's amazing.
Right, right, right.
10 out of 12. And
Exactly.
realizing some would fall back, which is normal. But
Right. But again, what we're trying to do is one, encourage them to get out, find I find them employment. I'll find them, again, what we call vocational training. So what you're describing with your former church is that I'll take them to interviews. I'll work with that supervisor or hiring manager there, explain what Hope Center is. And the fact that we have so many residents there is helpful to different organizations, companies, corporations, because of the staffing shortages right now. And so people like to work with us because we provide transportation to and from job sites. We do random urinalysis to make sure that these guys are going to show up clean and ready to work. They're fed. They go with lunch. They come back home. They eat dinner. So we have, like, the resident lacks nothing while he's at Hope Center. And these are really important things because when they're, say, for example, in unsheltered homelessness, you don't know when you're going to eat again. You don't, again, depending on what the lifestyle is, they don't know when they're going to get their next fix, their next, whatever it is, ice, whatever their addiction is, their next drink. So you're always on edge. They don't really sleep. Rarely will they sleep. They'll stay up at night because you can't sleep, right? You're out in the city or in the wilderness, whatever it is. And there's other people that are coming by and maybe try to take your stuff. So it's very difficult to even rest. We're providing things like a place to rest, food, everything that they would need.
and what makes you think why do you believe your program has been so um, successful? What is the secret sauce that maybe makes Hope Center different from other places?
I think the secret sauce, for example, would be Christ. Would be the fact that we're constantly talking about that radical transformation, like a renewal of our minds. I think that that's really what makes the difference. We don't force anyone. It's not like I'm bonking anybody on the head saying receive, receive, like maybe some churches might do. But I think they get it. They start to, as soon as they come in, they know they're loved. And sometimes for men, that's like, what are you doing? That's like so bizarre. Why are you hugging me? But then those walls of just like, what is this? Or those feelings, they'll start to go away. Those walls will come down and they'll start to be a little bit more vulnerable. And then it's in that vulnerability that we're able to let them know, hey, when you're weak is when you're truly strong. That's when the Lord can actually start to work with your heart. And so that's when the change happens. To me, that's what our secret sauce is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just loving these guys beyond measure. And again, it doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't take for everybody, but that's okay. Even 1 week or 1 month or whatever, 6 months at Hope Center, maybe someone leaves, but I know that they've gotten something while they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And they've called me afterwards, after they've left. They leave early and they say, Leo, I messed up, but thank you. I've learned a lot. They'll ask if they can come back oftentimes, and sometimes we do take them back and we work with them some more. All right, we're not opposed to that either.
Well, the seeds are planted, even if they pull out early.
Yes.
The seeds are planted, and like the prodigal son, they may return. And and I appreciate the atmosphere there. As you said, they're not bonked on the head; it's not pushed down their throat. The gospel, that is, and they have the option to go to a Bible study or not. And I have to say, without exaggeration, having done a Bible study or two there, it was the most fun I've ever had. The guys are so receptive. They're involved. They're hungry for the word, and it was so interactive. It was really an exceptional time I had with them. And so, if there are other pastors out there saying, "Gee, maybe if Leo has me do a Bible study, maybe he'll be willing to do it," it was really great. It's kind of like. Somebody said, if you come late to church, people kind of turn around and they kind of scowl like, golly, could you get here on time? What's your problem? But if you go into an AA group and you walk in, they stop the program, they turn around, oh, so great to see you. It's so neat. And they hug you and you come back and they know that this is part of your lifeline and so important and they want you to come back. And that was kind of the feeling at Hope Center, that they're just, I love that they're all in the same boat, trying to, beggars leading other beggars, trying to find food, in a sense, as they say. And I remember when I used to teach, not teach, but lead divorce recovery in a church. It was one of my most favorite things because there are no masks. We're there because we're hurting because of a divorce.
Right.
We want help. We want hope. And that's what you do. And that's why it's called Hope Center. You are giving hope to these men and with great results. Anything else you want to tell us about Hope Center?
Yeah, I'll just share it to anyone, maybe pastors or anyone that wants to get involved. There's plenty of avenues to get involved, from like you're describing, a Bible study, to working one-on-one with a resident, walking him through the program. We've had counselors do that. Just people from church, lay counselors, Stephen ministers come by and work with a resident. And now that resident is graduating, so a 12-month process. And these counselors will say, I got so much. Like, I feel like my connection to Christ has been strengthened. I've learned so much about myself and about the kingdom by working with one guy from Hope Center. So those are some options. Counseling, Bible studies. If you'd like to cook a meal, you can come by and cook a meal with the guys. They love to grill and do typical guy stuff. Like, this is a place like you're describing, free of judgment, no guilt, no shame, none of that stuff. Just come by.
Relational ministry.
Exactly.
Wow.
Some folks are looking for missions. They want to go abroad. They want to go over here. Come to Kailua. Come to Hope Center. Experience the radical change and miracles that are taking place in our backyard.
That's amazing. And, a lot of people are saying, gee, they may be retired or looking for a new ministry and not retired, but like, where could I serve? And now, hopefully, our listeners, our viewers are saying, well, this might be an option. Maybe we should pray. And everybody, we're talking to Leo Rodas, the executive director of Hope Center in Kailua. And maybe the Lord's leading to consider supporting it in some way. So, Leo, thank you so much for being with us. And so great to hear how God transformed your life, and how, like in the Gospel of Luke, when Jesus said, when you get strong, strengthen others.
Right.
And that's what you've done. You've had your life turn around, you've got stronger, and now you want to help others in a similar situation to live a better life and flourish more as a person, and hopefully with Jesus. And that's amazing. So to the viewers, I just want to thank you so much for being on the Him podcast. And again, every other week we have different speakers, and every other week we have another interview with someone. And so hope you can always join us, and just be realistic. The way the podcast exists is that people like you might consider sending a donation so we can keep this going. And if this has been helpful, that is amazing. And just go to himonline.org, and look for the Give button, but also look at all the events that are coming up. And so thank you so much for being with us. And I just want to say aloha and mahalo, and see you next time. God bless you all.